At 8:43, let's take you through the sports page. It's going to start with otbsports.com, as we do every day. We recommend that you get your sports news from otbsports.com. And that's our feature interview last night with one of the co-founders of the East Belfast GAA club. People say things like, I'm a Protestant, can I play? And it turns out yes is the answer. Then as well, I'm not buying Rory McIlroy's not good enough. That's the clip we just played you from Paul McGinley making news last night, and loads of rugby as well, in terms of what needs to happen with the future of Ireland's backline moves, from Rory O'Connor last night speaking to Joe on Monday Night Rugby. I run through the sports pages very quickly. Obviously, Manchester United's late victory in extra time against Copenhagen last night is in all of the papers, and the return to club action, GAA activity in Kildare, Laois and Offaly moves back a phase. As per the government guidelines, you are allowed to have non-contact training sessions of no more than 15 players outdoors, and that's what the GAA's National COVID Advisory Committee have recommended for the clubs in those counties. But also a story here from John Fogarty. GPA split season plan has Croker support. So it's interesting that the GPA plan was made public last Friday, but it does already have something from Croke Park in terms of support. Micheál Martin, the Wexford Vice Chairman, not the Taoiseach, is a member of the National Fixtures Committee. Nothing's off the table, he says. We're in changed times. Everything will be considered. I would imagine that will be the view of the whole group. We're being reconvened to review the previous proposals and to examine any other proposals we may have. Despite what was put in the public by the CPA, the group were very much of the opinion that change was required and there was an openness to change before COVID-19, and I imagine it hasn't done anything to change that appreciation. It may even have brought a greater appreciation to that. So I think support is rallying behind the GPA's plan for a radically shortened inter-county season. Sancho going nowhere, says Dortmund. We've been talking about that a little bit earlier on with Andy Mitten. Irish Open's move north to draw US-based golfers. This is a story from Brian Keogh, and I haven't seen this anywhere else as well. The Dubai duty-free Irish Open looks set to be held in Northern Ireland the week after the US Open, from September the 24th to the 27th. Obviously, it was supposed to be in Mount Juliet this year in May, from the 28th to the 31st. And I think Mount Juliet still has the signs up. So I think Mount Juliet's probably going to get it next year as part of this. But it now appears likely to be played at Galgorm Castle Spa and Golf Resort near Ballymena. So I think they did want it to either go to back to Mount Juliet or perhaps to the Old Head. The COVID-19 restrictions have forced the European Tour to look north, according to multiple sources. So that looks like it's going to be the week after the US Open, from September 24th to 27th. The Irish Times, obviously, again, I think it's the same picture of the penalty being scored last night. United seal semi-final spot as Fernandes sinks Copenhagen, and they've got a preview of the game tonight between Wolves and Sevilla in Duisburg. And they're also looking back at Lukaku firing Inter Milan through. So we're still on track for an Inter Milan Manchester United final, and there is a picture of Stuart Lancaster, who was doing press yesterday. Gavin Cumsky reading the runes, saying that he does hope to be part of the Lions coaching ticket. He said it would be a huge honour to be. He has not been approached for it yet. Fans must return or clubs will go bust, says the chairman of Exeter in the UK. I'll get to that in a moment as well. The star of the back page, United made to sweat. We have real incentive, so that's Vinnie Perth. A home draw in the Champions League second qualifying round presents a massive incentive to navigate next week's opening tie at NK Celje. That's in Újpest in Hungary, and that's the venue for the meeting with the Slovenian champions tomorrow week. So we're going to see a lot of very hopeful stuff, because then it'll be Molde probably in the next round after that, and that'll be in the Aviva for Dundalk if they can manage to make it through that. And Vinnie Perth is making the point that he gets judged on Champions League results as well. So that's the story there. We're losing $1 million a month. Exeter Chiefs, just like RTE, are losing $1 million a month, it turns out. Exeter Chiefs chairman fears clubs will go bust by Christmas. Closed stadiums are biggest threat as vital revenues drive up. Rough ride for Ole. This is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Dortmund hit brakes, but Sancho chase is on. It's him arriving to work on a bike, and Fernandes says United blushes in extra time. I think that, look, how you win the competition is irrelevant, just winning the competition. Here we go. It's a picture of Bruno with his ears covered. That's why they're gone with here we go there. Lockdown ease for GAA clubs. That's their back allowed to play. Bruno is Red Star, is that one there. And pictures of Mason Greenwood feeling the heat. Sluggish United forced into Europa League extra time, so the early edition of The Guardian didn't have the full-time results for that one as well. Dortmund playing hardball. And that's that picture of Bruno on the back of that one as well. The Irish Daily Mail has Blues boss backs Schmidt for big comeback. So this is Stuart Lancaster reckons that it's Joe Schmidt was linked with a job at World Rugby at the weekend in the Sunday Times, and Stuart Lancaster is backing him to get back into rugby sooner rather than later. And an amazing story in the front of the Racing Post. The questions Phoenix thoroughbreds will not answer. Last November, the Racing Post reported that Amer Abdulaziz, the founder of the big spending global racing operation Phoenix Thoroughbreds, had been named as an alleged money launderer for the fake cryptocurrency OneCoin in a US courtroom. If you want to read any more on that, you can get it in the Racing Post today. And all about the ARC, Gosden explains why Enable will bypass York. So, Shane, where are we going?
Here we go, I think, is the tab of the morning, Ger. I think that's Bruno Fernandes. I think he was speaking last week about, he was giving out to the TV corporations for not catching his celebration. It's a message to his daughter, apparently. So every time he scores a goal, he cups his ears. But apparently it was cutting off his celebration early, so his daughter said, you didn't do it, Dad, but he did it, and it's all over the back pages. So at least she's happy.
I think Here We Go is a bit lazy, I've got to say. I think boring, man touching ears and it's Here We Go. I'm like, come on, lads, come on. You're phoning it in. Every morning the country needs a little smile, a little bit of joy, a little bit of serotonin. And it's like, here we go. Oh, come on. Come on.
Yeah, C- could be better, I think.
His daughter could have done better than that, I think.
I think we should start with the GPA, Jared, that John Fogarty story you mentioned in the Irish Examiner. So it's good to see that there potentially is a bit of agreement on the horizon. I think John was writing as well at the weekend in the Examiner about how this forced change into the GAA season is probably going to create the environment for meaningful change as well. So because the GAA calendar has been forcefully amended, we possibly have started a conversation for the better in terms of GAA players and player welfare, most importantly. But we had that GPA release last week, so Paul Flynn outlining their plan for the GPA calendar. So from the start of February to the end of July, a season. This would incorporate a pre-season, so you're slicing the calendar essentially by as much as 17 weeks. So the GPA agree on this, the CPA agree on this, and as per John Fogarty's piece in the Examiner today, it appears that the GAA may potentially agree on this, because the man you mentioned, the Wexford Vice Chairman, Micheál Martin, again, not the Taoiseach, he previously acted as a National Fixtures Committee Chairman, so that's why he's important. He's a member of that Fixtures Committee task force as well. So he's saying these GPA proposals will be given due consideration, which is positive, because the GAA are the key cog in this. Obviously, we need their agreement. The GPA need their agreement. The CPA need their agreement for this to actually happen. August 19th, so tomorrow week, is the big date. That's the day that the GPA will present this plan to the GAA's National Fixtures Review Task Force. So I guess we wait with bated breath to see what will happen. But I mean, Micheál Martin's comments, the Wexford Chairman, Vice Chairman, in the paper today, in John Fogarty's piece, would point to at least serious consideration of the GPA's proposals. So this GPA plan, in a nutshell, a pre-season inter-county schedule of 23 weeks. So currently the season obviously runs to twice that length. So that would leave the period from July to August to July or August to December to hold club activity, which gives them plenty of time to complete club championships.
Yeah, I think I think the August bank holiday weekend is kind of the cut-off point. Like they said, the end of July. But if you think about it, like a Saturday evening All-Ireland final hurling and a Sunday afternoon All-Ireland football final, that's not a bad weekend. Maybe you spread that over the course of the week, because the hurling ends up getting swamped in terms of the football coverage. I don't know, but that's a perfect endpoint to a season.
It's better for player welfare as well. I mean, they get a bit of time off. If you're off at the end of July, August, you probably get the chance to go off to New York and do your Boston, Diarmuid Connolly type escapades. But well, when travel resumes, so it's an interesting one. It would be a cruel blow if this conversation next Wednesday between the GPA and the GAA didn't go anywhere.
Well,
clearly, there's an appetite for change.
This is the Fixtures Review Committee meeting next. So
yeah,
like they're just bringing
this is the 11 person.
Yeah, and they're one vote on that, or they're one voice on that. Obviously, everybody else, it's supposed to be coming with proposals. They're supposed to be coming with ideas. Now, this is the Fixtures Review Committee, which has already put forward 3 separate ideas. One is retain the status quo. One is split the country into 4/8, which makes a lot of sense, but obviously completely screws New York. And we're just about to have a New York president, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And then the final one was to flip the interprovincial to early season and flip the league to the summer, and that would actually ultimately be what decides where Sam Maguire goes. Now, apparently there isn't that much appetite for that. That was all pre-COVID. That was all in the alternative universe that existed before a pandemic hit and before we kind of had a look at some alternative arrangements and what life might look like if there was a separate inter-county and a separate club season. And to be honest, what this proposal that the GPA put forward, it doesn't actually suggest, it's agnostic on the idea of what those competitions should be. It's just saying, here's your window to run inter-county competitions, have at it, lads.
Yeah, there's no digging down. Perhaps they're waiting on whether or not they see people amenable to their ideas, that they go into more detail. But the one positive I'm seeing from the GPA, from my perspective, is sustainable amateurism. Paul Flynn is at least coming up with ideas. We had the ESRI reports, I think, last year, where the quality of life and the amount of hours spent commuting and spent getting to training was a worry for a lot of people and a lot of inter-county players. So to hear Paul Flynn talk about things like sustainable amateurism, I think he was on with yourself and Owen a couple of weeks ago, where he spoke about competitive balance as well and learnings from the Aussie rules. So they might be buzzwords, but hopefully they lead to a better future for the GAA and, most importantly, a better calendar, because, as you said, the ideas are a little bit fickle at the moment, but hopefully they take a bit of shape over the next while.
Yeah, look, I think this is a quantum leap forward in terms of the conversation that's being had. And now there is a concrete proposal. Everybody's always asking the GPA to be the body that comes forward and fixes everything, when actually, ultimately, it is Croke Park and the GAA Politburo and Congress whose job it is to fix everything, because they're the ones that set the policies. The players want to play and the players want to win, because that's that short period of their career where they're as good as they can possibly be. And so somebody needs to say, well, this is where you're going to play, and this is when you're going to play, and these are the competitions you're going to play in. The players can't fix everything, but at least now they've answered that old hoary chestnut about, oh well, they never come forward with any ideas. Here's the ideas. Let's have at it. Let's have the debate, and let's hear from people who think this is a bad idea and that we should retain the bit where it's like 40 weeks of the year, because nobody thinks that anymore. I think that kind of, the tide has gone out on that one. So here's a concrete proposal and an opportunity to make the change almost immediately if we wanted it. They could still have the special Congress virtually this December, when everybody has kind of come through this process and gone, okay, well, what's next? And I think there's a definite window of opportunity here, and the GPA are flying through it, so I think fair play to them. 0879 180 180, give us your thoughts on that, or use the hashtag OTB AM. It's 8:55 this morning here on OTB AM. Where are we going next, Shane?
Yeah, we'll stick with the GAA, but GAA Smack Talk, Ger, is something I think that everyone will agree we need more of. Smack Talk obviously works, especially if you do it beforehand. If you tell someone you're going to win something and then go on to win it, you look better. I should know, because the duathlon that we recently took part in, I clearly engaged in a small amount of smack talk, but followed it through with the performance at the end of the day, and beat our esteemed producer Tommy Rooney to the title. Smack talk is important. We don't see enough of it in the GAA. We see a lot of platitudes. We see the usual Asher Lookets in pre and post match interviews. It's a bit tiring. I think everyone will agree. You switch off the TV as soon as the interviews are about to happen. But Pádraig Ó Hórra, now, Mayo, we should always expect that Mayo will bring the stories, but once again, they've brought the story here. So Ballina Stephenites and Knockmore, both Mayo clubs, ensured their progression to the quarterfinals of the Mayo Club Championship with wins on Sunday. So Ballina beat Claremorris by 10 points, Knockmore beat Kiltane by 16. So Ballina and Knockmore will meet in their final game in Group 3 of that championship. So it could appear to be a dead rubber. They might both progress anyway. But Pádraig Ó Hórra, of course, a Mayo panellist as well, was speaking to Mike Finnerty for Mayo GAA TV after his Ballina side won. We have a video clip as well, so it kind of explained itself. So this is Mike Finnerty speaking to Pádraig Ó Hórra.
All or nothing when you play Knockmore in a couple of weeks, but anytime Ballina play Knockmore over the years, it's a right good battle. Are you dying to test yourselves against them?
Yeah, we'll go out and beat them in 2 weeks.
I love it. Any particular reason?
No.
Just because?
Just because.
Is that the way the Stephenites now are looking at this championship? It doesn't matter who, where, when. That's the mindset.
Yeah. Beat anybody we come out against this year. Simple as.
Pádraig, I don't think there's any need to ask you a follow-up question. Evan...
Amazing is that?
It's good. I mean, I like the way that is that their normal jersey? They wear the Mayo jersey. That's it. We're just.
I think so. It's a cocky thing. So doubling down on that cockiness clearly with post-match interviews. I love Evan Regan as well. The clip cut off it there, but he was asked, "What do you think?" And he said, "I'm always confident." So he was a little bit more reserved, I guess, than Pádraig Ó Hora. But any particular reason? No, just because. It's as someone pointed out on Twitter, it's going to lead to a lot more cranes and people trying to peer over the fence to watch that match in a couple of weeks' time. So it adds a bit of intrigue to the GAA, I think, a bit of smack talk.
People are going to sign up to Mayo TV. Do you remember the reverse of this was when Johnny Cooper was asked about Carlo away in the championship on the Sunday game when the draw was made? Remember, they make the draws in like October, November. It's ludicrous to make the draw so far away from that point. And he's like, oh yeah, it was a tough place to go. Well, in fairness to Johnny Cooper, that ended up being one of the very last times that we saw Diarmuid Connolly starting a match for the Dubs because of the controversy that came from it. So maybe he knew something we don't.
I mean, yeah, that is the complete opposite. Nobody wants to see that, and nobody wants to see an interview where you're not at least a little bit honest. You could say we're clearly the favourites here, but you have to respect your opposition. But it'll be a tough match. Is a bit of a stretch. We had the famous GAA smack talk, of course. Kieran Donaghy to Joe Brolly. What do you think of that? After the 2014 All Ireland, Donaghy on a high had scored 1-2 in that match. I don't know if it counts if it's after the fact. I prefer when smack talk occurs in the order in which Pádraig Ó Hora has done it. So when you tell someone you're going to do it, as I said, that's more impressive. Another example of the reverse way of doing it is Darren Hughes. So I had to sneak in a Monaghan story to this one. So Monaghan and Tyrone, naturally enough, have a natural rivalry, bordering counties. And in the I think it was the 2014 All-Ireland quarter-final. So the previous year had been Sean Kavanagh pulling down Conor McManus as he was through on goal. Monaghan were 2 points down. A goal would have won them that All-Ireland quarter-final. Joe Brolly famously, with his comments towards Sean Kavanagh in the studio afterwards. The following year, then they played again. So Darren Hughes was sent off. I think we actually have a GIF of that incident that we can probably play on screen. But Darren Hughes ruffled the hair of Tiernan McCann, a Tyrone player. So Marty Duffy, the referee, gave Darren Hughes a red card for this. It was harsh, to say the least. That's not just Monaghan bias coming through.
It was ludicrous.
It was ridiculous. He ruffled his hair. But we may have an image that we can put up on screen. We may not. But it's Darren Hughes tweeting, petting his dog at night time, so you can see on screen the incident. But Darren Hughes came back to his house that night, tweeted a photograph saying he was petting his dog all evening and she hasn't budged. So I think the worst thing about the image as well was Darren Hughes' headboard. It got a lot of publicity because his headboard looked like it was from the 1950s on his bed. But another interesting example of GAA smack talk, and something that I think you'll agree, Ger, we'd like to see a lot more of. So fair play to Pádraig Ó Hora, and I'm gonna try and find a stream for that match in a couple of weeks.
We're looking for famous examples of GAA smack talk, and we couldn't find that many. Like, no. Tommy spent all day yesterday. Apparently John Kiley, the Waterford boss back in 2007, Waterford hadn't won a Munster for 19 years and they were playing Paddy O'Shea's Clare, and he called them out and said they were going to win that game by a couple of points, and lo and behold they did actually win it. But that's there are not a whole heap of examples of this. Sorry,
I was looking around last night.
Dinny Cahill, I forgot about this one. I've just remembered it. When he was the manager of the Antrim Hurlers, Dinny Cahill said that Antrim were going to beat Cork or Tip. It might have been Tip, might have been Cork. And it was as believable as the manager of the Antrim Hurlers now saying that they would beat Tip. And I don't know if it was one of those games where 11 goals were scored or maybe 15 goals were scored, but it didn't happen the way that Dinny said it was going to happen. And that might have put back the whole ethos of smack talk in the GAA another generation. People looked around and they went, oh, that's what happens to you when you poke the bear. Don't poke the bear.
Yeah. I did find a couple of examples where Davy Fitz and Brian Cody traded jobs. Well, Davy Fitz traded jobs towards Brian Cody, but it was fairly weak stuff. It wasn't personal. It wasn't harsh. It was kind of just a little bit antsy, I guess is the word. But possibly it happens at club level more than inter-county level, because at club level you've got the parish rivalry, you've got people who know each other quite well. It doesn't happen as much at inter-county. So.
Yeah, and it needs to be made public. 0879 180 180 if you want to share your opinions on this. Some people were suggesting Gerlach Nan. We're going to do it at half-time, but when Marty asked him what's going to happen, but the trouble with that is that's not smack talk that the opposition are actually going to hear. He's going back out onto the field. That would need to have been broadcast to the stadium so that Offaly could see it and go, what? What did he say? But that didn't happen. So like that was kind of a secret below the radar. That's him. That's his. He's buzzed. He's just come from delivering one of those half times and looking in the whites of the eyes of the mad Claremen who are about to deliver glory, and he knows what's going to happen. And so that doesn't count. I'm sorry, I'm not having that one. So if anybody wants to give us any more, go for it. Use the hashtag OTB AM as well. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We have a brilliant hour lined up for you here between 9 and 10. Ken Doherty's going to join us. Going to chat with boxing impresario Eddie Hearn as well. Deal or No Deal is up next. Keep an eye out for this week's episode of Andy Lee Meets in the ad break.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.